Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're back in Småland for day 6 of the Swedish Forest Cup. Yes, we are back for the 6th day of the Swedish Forest Cup, a week again organised by Christian Enberg, with Anna and Cecilia Enberg as well as Libor Forst advising, and it can all be found on this tempo simulator which Libor built himself, the link to which can be found in the description of this video. Now, in passing the halfway point of this week, I think it has definitely had for me its ups and downs with its difficulty, and yesterday being my best day so far, I am happy with how it's going, and I am just really looking forward to what Christian has done with today's event, returning to Småland, and how much fun it is going to be. So why don't we just jump straight into it with the Swedish Forest Cup section, and we are going to day 6, which today has a 1 to 5,000 map with 2.5 metre contours, and we are back with 4 stations. It is again a 60-second penalty with a 4 metre no side problem, 0 tolerance, and this area was originally mapped at 1 to 15,000, so the map has been directly scaled and may have a couple of ambiguities which we will have to look out for, with some positionings of boulders on the map, etc. Pitches are going to be back to generally 120 degrees, so we will have to take that into account with it being wider than normal human vision, and as we've said before, we're observing the longer penalty time, so we will be taking it a bit slower to try and make sure we get things right. As always, my answers are going in the top right hand corner of the screen, so you can see exactly what I'm putting, correct or wrong, with the black and red letters respectively. At the moment I do. And yeah, with that, let's have a go at day 6 of the Swedish Forest Cup. And here is station 1. Okay, we've got Charlie at the back. There's a big hill at the back with Foxtrot on the end of it. That's probably what that is. Is that the knoll there? That could be the knoll. So that stony area would put it as delta. Is that a boulder back there? Or we actually round that bit. That would fit better actually with Foxtrot on the knoll, so that's a 0 and Foxtrot on the knoll. That boulder would then be could that be Echo? I can't see any boulders anywhere else. Unless we are actually round here, and that is round the back there. I'm going to 0 it and see where we go. Okay, maybe that one is Foxtrot. Maybe that's the knoll there. And then that comes to that spur of Charlie. No, it's Bravo. So I have mispunched there. I did put Charlie, I saw the Bravo kite, thought it was Charlie, and that is definitely a mistake, and this is going well so far. So that station did trick me quite a bit, especially in the first couple of tasks. I managed to fit it correctly the first time, but then I told myself it wasn't going to be that, and we were actually somewhere else on the hill, and so definitely got the first 2 tasks wrong. I then realised that after the first 2 tasks, and I think I got the next 2 right, putting Foxtrot twice, but I think I was correct the second time. You all know that already. And then, as we've already said, at the end I did put Charlie, but it is actually Bravo, and I've made a mess of that. So we will have to look at that again afterwards, but I can now see how it worked. And we will move on now to station 2. However, I have noticed that number of tasks here has gone up to 6 rather than 5. I don't know whether that's a mistake, because that wasn't mentioned in the instructions that it is normally 5. So we will have to keep an eye out for that as we go into station 2, which possibly has an extra task. Okay, Echo's at the back on a boulder by the looks of it, Alpha at the front in that dip. That could be that boulder. Is that the dip in that hill that curves round? So that's a boulder there, so that is Echo. Out the front here, that's on the wrong hill. That boulder, is that it there? Does that put Delta on the end of that hill? Foxtrot, sorry. I'll go with Foxtrot. Ah, Could that be Foxtrot? Yeah, I'm going with that. That's got to be a 0, surely. And that boulder there. That's the same task twice. I'm going with Foxtrot again. Well, I don't really know what to think about that one. I was very confident with it after the first task, but then it all seemed to go downhill, quite literally with the hills right in front of us. But yeah, I think I've put Foxtrot 3 times, and to me, tasks 3 and 6 were exactly the same, so I do wonder whether there was actually meant to be 5 tasks and the 6th task wasn't meant to be there at all. So we will have to see about that afterwards. That's thrown me quite a lot, but for now we're just going to have to put that to the back of our mind and look at that afterwards as we go into what seems to have the normal amount of tasks of 5 with station 3. Okay, Foxtrot's on a tree at the front. That's going to be the biggest feature with a hill behind it. There is no tree, helpful. That's the bare rock, so that will be on that spur. That would work as a 0. Well, he says 10 to 2. Oh no, back there. Top of that hill, there's the boulders. That's the hill of that boulder, that puts it as alpha. That vegetation over there is only going to be Foxtrot. I think it is. That boulder there, is that now the alpha boulder? Oh yeah, that is the alpha boulder. Between those 2 boulders is Charlie, and that boulder is a 0. And that was a much better station in my opinion. I think we may have got the first one wrong with it being alpha potentially on the end of that spur, but I think it actually was on the boulder for the 3rd task, so I think that is probably another mistake, but I don't think the rest of it was too bad at all, with the final task being on the wrong boulder, as I think Echo was on the one to the left hand side of the boulder we actually wanted. But I think I was actually fine with that one, and we will now go into the final station of the day, which is station 4. Okay, Foxtrot's on a boulder at the back, and there's 2 boulders potentially with Echo and Foxtrot. What's that? What could be? Could that be where Delta is? Oh, Delta's right back there. Okay, so I think that one's a 0. That boulder, well, Foxtrot's going to be mapped over Echo. This boulder here, which side do we want? Other side, so is Bravo. That knoll, Alpha seems too far away. I'm going to go with that. And that boulder, I've definitely got one of those wrong. I think it was 43. That's a painful trick to do, and I think I've probably got at least one wrong in every station. But let's have a look at the stations for today, and with station 1. Now this one did trick me to start with, but I think I have now got a grasp of it. When I first looked at this, I saw the hill at the back, and I saw there were 2 sort of re-entrant shapes, or the lower ground coming here, and either of them could be where we are. But I originally thought we were in this bit, and then I looked to the right hand side and couldn't really see a knoll here at all. And then so I stopped thinking correctly that we were going to be in this bit, as I originally wanted to put Charlie, and then thought we were actually going to be in this re-entrant here. So that would put the boulder field to the right hand side of the re-entrant to be this one here, and so would put it as a 0. However, I can now see that we are actually in this right hand re-entrant, and I realised that later on. And so we want the boulder field just over the spur, and with Delta being on the one just this side of the spur, we want the one that Charlie's on, as it's the next one along. So I think that one is now Charlie, and that is a mistake. And then we go up to the top of the hill, and we want the knoll on top of the hill, and me thinking that we were over in this one before, I thought this one was Foxtrot. However, I think this is now clearly meant to be on the knoll over here, and so is actually a 0. So that one is a lot clearer now. I know exactly where we are. And then I actually realised we were in the wrong place when we came down here, and I I couldn't see a boulder properly on this side. And so I then looked over to where Bravo was. Remember, it is Bravo. And I looked around the hill and I saw another rock around here. So I think I thought that one is meant to be the rock, and so is a 0. So this is the first task I have managed to get right today, even if it did take me 29 seconds to get there. And then we go all the way out to the right hand side, and it's the moment of doubt where you think, was I actually right the first time? But I think I'm going to stick with this one being Foxtrot at the top of that hill to the right hand side of this re-entrant here. And then we come back and we don't get Charlie, as we've already said that Charlie is the correct answer to the first task. I did realise during this station I completely messed it up, saw the kite, knew it was Bravo, said Charlie. However, I do know this is definitely now Bravo on this spur. And so that does mean I have made 3 mistakes in this first station, I believe. Even if I was right the first time, I will have got 13 and 14 wrong instead. And so I think that was a very interesting station to start the day on. With the 2 parallel features and the possibilities, that did trip me up quite a bit. But I think that was a good station and I did enjoy that. And then we move on to station 2, and I think this one was a lot more interesting. Now, I have spoken to Christian and it was meant to have 6 tasks in it, so that wasn't a mistake, and I don't think there is anything wrong with changing the amount of tasks between each station. If you were reading the information between each station, you would have noticed that. Now, with this first task, this was very hard to see, and I think especially with the mist going on in the background, you may have easily missed that Echo is on a boulder, but I think it is clearly there. And so when we're trying to recognise this boulder, what have we got to try and fit everything together? Well, there is definitely a hill back here with Alpha on it, and I think the only hill that we can see that potentially matches the description is this one here. And you can also see the hill down here with Bravo as these 2 depressions here. Okay, maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe I've got this very badly wrong. Let's have a look at it. So I think Alpha is definitely on this hill with Charlie on the other end of that hill. And then you have another hill over here with Delta between the 2. And then there is a boulder just here, and I think this is the first boulder in the middle of the boulder field. And then you go up to the second boulder, which does seem to have Echo on the northwestern side of it. So I am happy with that one being Echo, but now I've spotted those are meant to be depressions. This may completely change my answers for the next ones. So with this second task, I think this is definitely a 0 still, but I think I've possibly got it right for the wrong reasons, and I'm now completely seeing all my mistakes. So this is going to be an interesting one. What I saw were 2 hills here, and I saw those 2 hills, and I said Bravo is not on the southern end of this second hill, so is a 0. But I believe now this is actually a depression, and you can now see the boulder in the depression, so that is definitely where we are. And what we actually want, looking at the contour around here, is the second depression from it, and Bravo is definitely in the first one. So we want one that's miles out the right hand side of the photo, and is definitely a 0. So we have got the first 2 right, but these next 4 I think I've got amazingly wrong. We start with this one, and we have now realised that Bravo is in the first depression and it's in the southern part of that depression. And so this one is definitely Bravo, not Foxtrot, as I thought it was on the end of the second hill. And then we go to the knoll, and we want the northeastern side of that knoll, and so it is definitely Bravo again, because this is the knoll here and we want the northeastern side of that knoll. And so this is another Bravo, and I am smiling already because I know what the answer to 26 is, but we will get to that. We then come to 25, and I think this one is probably now Foxtrot, as looking at the depression and the knoll, we go up the hill a bit and then we hit the next contour, which does seem to be about where Foxtrot is. So I think that one is now Foxtrot and not 0, as I thought it was going to be a lot further round. And then we come back to this boulder and we want the south side of that boulder, and we have already identified the boulder as this one here, and the south side of it is, you guessed it, Bravo. And so it does turn out that all the times I put Foxtrot in this station, it was actually all Bravo, and that is why there were 6 tasks in this station. I absolutely love that. That is so annoying that I've had 3 minutes worth of penalties added on, but I can't stop smiling because every time I put Foxtrot it was Bravo. I really like that task, so thank you to Christian for putting that in. I'm not really annoyed at all. I think that was some great setting there, but that was just a complete error on my part. I read the depressions as hills, and this cost me 4 minutes, so this is already looking like it's probably going to be my worst day. And we haven't even moved on to station 3 yet, but here it is now, and I think this one did go a lot better for me. I originally saw this tree and thought that's going to be a distinctive tree. Turns out it wasn't actually a distinctive tree on the map, so I had to look at other things. And what I saw here was the light yellow area, which is the bare rock in this case, but it could easily be some sort of clearing or grassy area in itself. itself, as I think we saw in station 4. And we want the top of a spur at the back. And so in noticing the bare rock here, you can also see the hill just there. And we are going into the re-entrance. And originally, I read this map wrong again, and I thought that was actually a spur. However, I've now read the control description properly, and that is actually meant to be a re-entrance. So Alpha is definitely not the answer to this, because it's meant to be in a re-entrance, not on the top of the hill. The plausible answer to this one is Charlie, but as we'll see later, it is between the two boulders, and so we actually want the control to be a lot further down there, and is definitely a 0 to start this station off. So yeah, that was another mistake by me, but another good problem. I think we then came to a better place for the final ones though, as what we wanted here was the eastern part of some vegetation, and in seeing this tree, you would immediately think that we are probably going for this tree here. However, this is just one tree and not really a thicket. And if you look where it is in relation to the hill and the boulders, I think it's a lot closer to the boulders than this patch of green is, and so I think it's here. What I think is actually the vegetation is over here by Foxtrot, and that does seem to be a suitable distance away from these boulders. I am happy with that one as Foxtrot. I can see that a lot of people probably would have put Delta though, so we will have to see afterwards how many did that. And then we return to the boulders on the left hand side, and this one is definitely now Alpha, as I had my moment of realisation that I got the first task wrong, but for completely different reasons that I thought. And Alpha is very clearly on the southwestern side of that boulder, so I'm happy with that one being Alpha, with Bravo just somewhere along the bare rock. And then we go to between the two boulders, which we have already talked about as being these two boulders, and so is definitely Charlie. And then this final task I think was quite a cruel one, but I have got it right, I think. We want a boulder that is going to be further back from the vegetation that we have already answered as Foxtrot. Now if you put the answer to 33 as Delta, I think you would have definitely put Echo, as it looks like it's probably on the right diagonal from Delta. However, in knowing that the first one is probably going to be Foxtrot, the boulder that Echo is on is going to be this boulder here, nicely cut out of the circle for us. And so the actual boulder we want is going to be to the right hand side of Echo, and I think is going to be that boulder just through there that you can't really see with the magnifier, but I could definitely see a boulder in there before, but I think it's going to be around about there somewhere, and so is definitely a 0. And I think after the first task I was able to read that station a lot better, but that was a very good station again. I think there were many tricks in that to trip you up, and I am happy with that one again. That was very good. And then we move on to the final station of the day, and I have definitely made a couple mistakes in this one, but we will see them as we go. Now this first one I think is a 0. In placing ourselves, there are a couple of boulders here, obviously with Bravo and Charlie on one of them, and then we go back to this massive one, and I think that is probably where this big circle with the black dot in the middle is. So in saying that's what we want, or the boulder in front of it's what we want, you may look and see that Delta is on the western side of that, and so probably is going to be Delta. However, if you look where the cane of Delta ends, it ends back by the contour as it falls away again and doesn't actually come into the land, so I think this one is a 0 as Delta is going to be too far back, so I think that one is fine. And then we go out to the right hand side, and it's definitely a debate between Echo or Foxtrot, but I think because the rock that Echo is on is smaller than the kite, it's going to be unmapped, and so the rock we actually want is this one by Foxtrot. So I think the answer to this one is Foxtrot, with it being the northeastern side of that boulder back there. And then we come to what I think is definitely my mistake here, and we want the eastern side of a boulder, and so what I did immediately was say Bravo and Charlie are on this boulder, and we want the eastern side of that boulder. Now this is a very cruel task, as I have spotted north is going the wrong way, so we want the left hand side of the boulder, not the right, as you might think straight away in the control descriptions. It's definitely Bravo, but I think actually Bravo and Charlie are on this boulder here. You will realise that going into 45, and so the boulder we actually want is going to be behind us, and that one is definitely now a 0. So that is another trick that has tripped me up, and I am happy with that one being a 0 now. And then we go out to this side, and we want the northern foot of that knoll, and the only thing out to the left hand side is going to be Alpha. And I spent a lot of time debating this, but I'm now wondering whether this is actually going to be Alpha rather than 0, because the knoll is there, the northern foot is going to be about here, and I think I saw Alpha a bit further forward than where I wanted it. However, with a 4 meter tolerance that may easily be Alpha, so we will have to see afterwards, but I think I am changing my answer to Alpha rather than 0, and so that is another mistake. And then for the final task, just to rub salt into the wound, we come to this boulder here, and we realise that this is actually the boulder with Bravo and Charlie on, and the western side of that, which some of you may have got wrong and put Bravo, but that one is definitely Charlie. And that is just the final task I needed to end off that day, and it was a very good day actually, as much as I've got so much wrong. 9 tasks I think I got wrong today, so that's a 540-second penalty. That puts me at 768 seconds, and is definitely my worst time of the week so far, but I think it has been a fun event, and I'm definitely still smiling and laughing afterwards. I know this terrain is very hard, but that is how it goes, and this will probably be my worst event of the day. But let's go and have a look anyway at where I am in the overall standings, and you will see I am in 210th, and that's actually higher than I thought I'd be. I know I'm slightly earlier than some other days, but I think actually being in 210th isn't too bad at all. With 9 mistakes as well, I expect it to be a bit lower than that, so maybe there's been quite a few of you making mistakes today. We will have to see afterwards, but I will see you then for the overall results. And we are back, and you can see that I have slipped a small amount there down to 255th. I'm really not surprised with me having 9 mistakes, which we did find all of them when we went through previously. It was a very tough day, and that is going to be my worst score I think of the week so far, but we do get to drop one, so I don't think it's too bad. Firstly, we have to say well done to Kentaro for winning today's event by 8 seconds. There were quite a few in the top 20 which made no errors, so well done to those that did manage that. In terms of where Kentaro won the event, it does seem to be around station 2, with quite a lot of people slowing up during this station. I do wonder whether that was when you were looking to see if it was Bravo all 3 times, which it did turn out to be. And also with station 4, I think this was where most of the errors came if you made an error in the top 20. So I think he did very well there to do that, so well done to him. Let's now have a look at the station percentages for today, and with station 1, it's looking like potentially this final task might be the worst answered, and it is with 43%. It's the only one below 50% here, with 325 going with Bravo, but 186 thought it was Delta, and 126 also went with 0. This was the one that I mispunched, and I did know it was Bravo, I just put Charlie instead. And I am surprised it is the lowest one, because I think it was clear that there was a spur coming out where Bravo was. Maybe you were just rushing and you hadn't quite placed Delta properly, but I think we will see afterwards it was on the boulder field, and I think that one was clear as Bravo. The third task as well was only just above 50%, being a 0. This was where I just about managed to get it, and so I was one of the 404 that did put 0, but 192 I'm not surprised went with Bravo, and maybe that's why so many zeroed or put Delta for the final task, because you thought that the third task was Bravo, and there was a boulder behind Bravo, but I do think it was a long way behind Bravo, so I think that one was fine. And the other 3 tasks there, 62% and in the 80s, I don't think that's too bad at all. Most of you didn't do what I did and convince yourself that it was wrong after thinking it was right, so very well done for doing that. And then we go on to station 2, and with this station it was the triple Bravo, and it does seem like this second one is potentially going to be the worst answered, and it is with 31%. But actually after the first task they barely went above 50%, these percentages, with quite a few of you zeroing the final 4. Now I don't know whether that was because you had kind of given up with the station, didn't quite know where you were, and so were just zeroing to get through it and hoped that you were right, or you genuinely thought they were zeros. For me, I just read the map wrong and thought the depressions were hills, and so clearly thought that Foxtrot was there for all 3 of them, and people were definitely agreeing with me for the first 2, but it did turn out that all 3 of them were Bravo, and we did realise that afterwards. The only other one with a low percentage was the second one, which wasn't actually Bravo, although 295 of you did put Bravo. Maybe that's why so many zeroed it actually, because you thought task 2 was Bravo and not the 3rd, 4th and 6th tasks. However, that first task with 73% of you putting Echo, I thought that was quite hard to see, so if you did manage to spot that, very well done to you. We then go on to station 3, and we're back to the normal 5 tasks, and I think it might be the last task here which is the worst answered, and it is again the only one below 50%, although there are 2 at 50%. For the first task at 50%, 376 realised it was a 0, although there were quite a few for Charlie and a fair few for Alpha and Bravo. For me, I thought it was Alpha because I saw the re-entrant as a spur, but then looking at it as a re-entrant you could think it was Charlie, so I'm not surprised there were quite a lot of Charlies there, but it was definitely too far up the re-entrant, and I think you realised your mistake going into the 4th task, which was Charlie. But well done if you managed to put 0. That 3rd task being Alpha, 382 managed managed to get that, but 134 thought it was Bravo, and 161 thought it was a 0. If you thought Alpha was the answer to the first task, then you would have thought Bravo was the answer to the second one, further up the Bear Rock area. But I think there was clearly a boulder by Alpha, so for me that was the right answer. And then finally the fifth task here, 344 went with Echo, but 335 managed to realise it was a 0. And I think once we placed the woodland of Foxtrot, which most of you seemed to, it was clear to me that we were going for the wrong boulder, with Echo being the left-hand boulder, but I can see why 344 would have put Echo. But overall I thought this was quite a tough station, but the percentages aren't as bad as the previous one. So in managing to get most of those right, I think overall we've done a really good job there. And then we go to the final station of the day, which is station 4, and when we're scrolling, it's looking like this third task is probably going to be the worst answered, and we are down at 17%. That is quite low. This was the one that did trick me. 521 of you managed to notice that Bravo was the right side of the boulder, it was just definitely the wrong boulder, and the boulder we wanted was behind us. Well done to the 132 that managed to notice that. That was quite a cruel trick, but I think that was fair. And really the percentages here don't go above 50% again, apart from the final task, where 460 of you managed to notice it was Charlie, but 202 were probably adamant that it was Bravo for the third task, and so we were on a different boulder for this one. But the other percentages are fairly low, so we should probably go and have a look at that whole station again. But that does bring us to the end of the percentages, so we will go back and have a look at some of the weaker tasks for today. And with this first station, I've definitely pointed out my 2 errors to start with. I just thought we were actually looking at this one here, and so this one would be a 0 as I wanted it there, and then the second task would be Foxtrot at the top of that hill. But I could definitely see now that it was actually meant to be Charlie and the knoll over there, and I realised that during the third task, but quite a lot of you went with Bravo for this one, and I can see why, because knowing we're stood about here, that does look to be on the right line of sight. However, there isn't really a boulder around there. I think that's actually a tree stump, or potentially just a much smaller boulder, and with boulders not really being mapped if they're smaller than the kites, it's not going to be that there. We're actually going for that bit of rock round the side of the hill. The other way to tell this is if you look at the contours, we are going to go up a contour and then down again, so this is actually going to be a spur that will come out on, and we'll see that on the final task, and so the boulder's going to be the other side of this spur, and so not where Bravo is, and so is a 0. Many of you managed to notice Foxtrot on the top of that hill though. It was just then when you saw the final task, quite a lot put Delta, and I can probably see why, to be honest. I think there could potentially be a spur coming out of there. However, we have just worked with this area, and most of you managed to spot Charlie on the boulder field right back there. So Delta isn't that much more forward and is in line with this knoll, and so is definitely round here on this boulder field. What we actually want is the spur, which we have talked about with the third task, and it's definitely got Bravo on it, and it's definitely Bravo, not Charlie. So in making sure you don't miss punch, you will realise that this one is Bravo. But I don't think that station was too badly answered. I think most of you realised we were in the right re-entrant from the start, so well done if you did. And actually with this second station, I thought this first task was quite hard, but most of you managed to realise it was Echo, and it was far enough back to be Echo. It's just when we got here, and I think most of you probably managed to notice your first mistake going with Bravo here, because if you look at the shape of this hill, it does come down and then up, and that's really where this contour is. Although maybe you might have seen the up bit and thought that's where this ring contour is, and so the first depression is going to be here, and there could easily be a depression over by Foxtrot, but I think this one is clearly a 0. And then when we come to this task, you will realise why, because of the boulder and the knoll, and Bravo is definitely between them at the southern end of a depression, and so that one is definitely Bravo. In saying that, the northeastern side of the knoll is definitely Bravo as well. The centre of the circle does change, but with point features you will centre the circle on the feature and you have to go by the side, so that one is definitely Bravo again. And then as we've said before, we move into the re-entrant, and that one is definitely Foxtrot, just the other side of the boulder field. And then coming back, we have the boulder south side, and there is obviously a boulder here again, and Bravo is on the south side of that boulder. So well done if you did manage to spot those 3 Bravos. Not many of you did, and I think it was definitely a fun little challenge to throw in, even if I did put Foxtrot for all 3 Bravos. That was just me reading the depressions as hills, and I know that's what I did, so that is something I need to work on. So hopefully through the next few days I won't be making that mistake, but we shall see. Anything can happen. And then with this third station, most of you managed to get this this 0, I think I'd obviously read the re-entrant as a spur again, with me getting my contours mixed up, and so put Alpha because I thought it was on that spur. But we are actually in the re-entrant, and Charlie is in the re-entrant. But as we've said, you would have noticed your mistake at 34 with Charlie actually being between these two boulders. So I think that one was clear. And actually the rest of this station was fairly well answered. It was just when we got to this final task where quite a lot of you put Echo, and I can see why, if you're potentially not trusting your answer of Foxtrot, thinking it might actually have been Delta, and then that does seem to fit if Delta is on the end of this green bit. But I think with Delta just generally being in the woodlands, maybe on this contour, Foxtrot is definitely far enough away from these boulders to be on the green woodland, and so the boulder of Echo is actually this one, not the boulder further round, which might be that over there. So that one is definitely a 0, and I think those of you that made that mistake should be able to see it now. And then we come to this final station, and I will talk through this one again because the percentages here were fairly low, and I think this was quite a hard one. With this first task, for me, the only distinct thing that could be this black circle with the dot is going to be the massive boulder there. And so when wanting the western side of the dot underneath it, for me Delta is a long way back and so cannot be on this boulder here, and so that one is definitely a 0. But I can see why quite a lot would have put Delta, as it kind of fits that description, and if you're not looking at the cane properly, it does look in about the right place. And then with this second task, we're coming around here, and I can agree that Echo is on the first boulder that you reach. However, the boulder that Echo is on is definitely smaller than Echo, and the boulder that Foxtrot is on is definitely bigger than Foxtrot, so this is going to be the mapped one over this one, since there is only one mapped. I can potentially see that you might think both are not going to be mapped, but I think that would have been a very cruel task to put in, and I think if we're going to trust that these problems are going to be fair, then we have to deduce which one will be mapped, and that's definitely going to be the bigger one. So I think that one was fine as Foxtrot. And then this problem is a very fair problem, and I fell for this trick as much as most as you did. With two controls being on that boulder, I immediately went, it's going to be the right boulder, check the side, and so didn't check if it was the right boulder and just thought it was going to be Bravo straight away, as it is on the eastern side. However, there is a boulder behind us, and you can kind of see that from knowing there is a boulder there, and then this is the next boulder we come to outside the bare rock area of the yellow, and so that one is definitely going to be a 0, as the boulder we want is out the photo there. But well done if you did manage to spot that. I think that was quite a cruel trick to throw in, but it is definitely fair. And then this one I think is a lot harder to see, because Alpha could easily be on that knoll just as a quick glance, and with the few rocks coming out from it, Alpha could be very near that rock, and so the answer to this one could be Alpha if that rock is part of the knoll. But I think that knoll is actually quite a long way back from where Alpha is, and that's what I thought during the competition. I wasn't quite too sure on it afterwards, but it does seem like it actually was. So that one is okay as a 0, but I think that was probably the hardest task in this station. And then just to kick ourselves, we come back to the rock we actually wanted, and we realise our mistakes and know that this one is Charlie, although quite a lot of you didn't trust this one and thought it was actually going to be a rock between this two, thinking that Bravo was correct for 43. So I think that was a very good task to end with, and really that was a tough station to finish on after this day of really some very interesting mind games that went on throughout most stations, with the triple Bravo, with the 6 task station of station 2, and then also this final station having some cruel but fun tricks. And that is really the main thing here about having fun. Christian's slogan for the cup is about, if you can't bring the people to the forest, bring the forest to the people, and he has definitely done that, and really just giving us joy throughout these tough times of the pandemic. It's just really good for him to be doing, and I do really appreciate it. Even with all these mistakes, I'm still smiling, I'm still having fun, and that's all we can do. But now let's go and have a look at the overall positions for the cup so far, with 3 more days to go, and it has shot us down to see that I am in 83rd. So I've gone down a bit since yesterday. That is no surprise due to my low score today, and it is definitely my lowest score, so at the moment that one is the one that will be being discarded for me. So we will have to see what happens over the next 3 days. In terms of the top guys, Severin has still held his lead. He's now at an 8-point lead over Antti, after he came 5th today for a second time in a row. And then we have Alessio 7 points behind Antti, and Juha 8 points behind Alessio. So it is getting a bit more spread out across the top 3. We're starting to get a definitive first 3 positions, but we will have to see whether Juha or Petteri can challenge challenge them for the medal positions as we go into the final third of this competition. So that's going to be the interesting thing to watch there. In terms of the clubs though, I think Massey are definitely still taking this. They are now 43 points ahead of MTV Season, who are now 30 points ahead of MDOC, who have managed to move into third after LS37 had a 20th place actually. After their win from day one, they haven't been doing as well across these days. So MDOC have managed to take it to third. Whether they'll be able to take second place, I don't know, with the gaps being fairly big now at this stage. We will have to see, but I think Massey are definitely taking the lead as they always seem to. And then finally for the countries, we have the Finnish, who are now 75 points ahead of the Swedes, which I think is an absolutely massive gap to have gained over the 6 days so far. So very well done to them for doing so. It shows a lot of consistency. And then the Swedes are about 25 points ahead of the Italians. So first place does seem to be very secure, but second place could be fought out a lot between the Swedes and the Italians. We will have to follow that as we go. And then we have the Germans in fourth and the Polish just behind them in fifth. So that does bring us to the end of this 6th day of the Cup, and I have, again, as I do keep saying, really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to this final third with 3 more days to see the outcome and really just have some fun with the challenges that Christian is setting. But for now, that is the end of today's video. Thank you all for watching again. If you would like to like the video as always and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, it just helps me out behind the scenes, helping YouTube share these videos, and also keeps you notified whenever I release a video. I know I've been quite slow over the few days, but hopefully I'll be catching up before the end of this series. And also keep sharing these videos and the simulator to all your orienteering friends that you know of that aren't already competing. As I do keep saying, this website is amazing and the events that we get on here are also really good. So I do think that any orienteer that isn't on here already is missing out. So do make sure you are sharing this, and also be commenting down below like you always do, adding in any extra comments you have about today, with any extra things you think I've missed from the stations when going through them, and also any extra bits you want me to add to these videos. And I will join you again tomorrow for day 7 of the Swedish Forest Cup.